Another one that got a lot of attention and engagement on our social media platforms was your House Bill 1867, the No Government Trespassing Act. There weren't many bills that got so much just public comment and reactions on our Facebook the way this bill did. So my question would be to you, what made you file this bill in the first place? How did we get here? And a lot of people commented, why do gay wardens think, rightly or wrongly, that the Fourth Amendment does not apply to them? And not that's not an accusatory, question, but you just how do we get here and why was there even a need to even file that bill to have that conversation in the first place?
So that bill is the open fields doctrine is something I have been looking at for
Yes.
a very long time, since even my first election into the legislature. It's been surprising to me that a law enforcement agency has an additional power or responsibility separate and not equal to any other law enforcement. And as you just kind of investigate open fields, and I won't bore your audience, but it's a common law definition through Black's legal documents. What it does is it asserts that because a game warden has the ability to check on, again, through common law, the king's land, the king's water, or the king's game, they should be able to access individuals' private property to monitor and observe those things. Well, we live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. We have no king, and therefore to hang a practice on a common law practice, which exists in, I think, 40 something other states. I think as Arkansans, we should really evaluate if that's at the betterment of our people. So initially I had this bill in the pre-filing period, and I worked with several other House members. And as we've gone through the list, I've had a few other kind of larger bills and pieces of legislation that I need to tend to. I'm not saying this wasn't a high priority. It was a high priority, but I wanted to commit the right amount of time and effort into it. So I worked with other legislators, and some of them took the ball and ran with it, especially while I was running my private property rights and my lobbying reforms. And then as I had a child in the middle of session, and when I returned and really got back into clearing my capacity, we had not gotten very far in terms of negotiating or working with the Game and Fish Commission and the Game and Fish Law Enforcement Division on what would be a suitable compromise. And so I decided to just file my original bill. I do want to take a moment to say I appreciate Colonel Young and everybody and all of the law enforcement and game warden officers at Arkansas Game and Fish. They do tremendous work. And filing this bill was never meant to be an indictment on their work and how important the work they do is. And the cross collaboration they do with law enforcement agencies all across the natural state to help with things outside of game and fish investigations. The bill was meant to help invoke a very serious conversation about what can we see change without changing the legislation, without changing our code. And the Game and Fish did change their standard operating procedure to go from there's no reason at all for them to be able to enter into private property to they now at least need a articulable reason, meaning someone will have to put their name to a accusation as to poaching or desecration of the state land or water in order to enter into that property. So is it the same as a reasonable suspicion of a crime? No, but it's a step forward in that Game and Fish is going to be having a higher bar to clear in order to enter someone's property without a warrant. So I appreciate the Colonel and his work on this. I think we've gotten to a place where no one feels really comfortable and happy, but for true progress to be made, people kind of have to leave the table feeling like they didn't get the best deal possible. So I'm thankful for where it's the No Government Trespass Act, the conversation it created, and then where we ultimately landed. And if it needs to be brought up again in the future, I would look forward to seeing empirical data about those articulable reasons why people enter into property without a warrant.
Their new standard of operation will still allow them to go on a property without a warrant?
Correct. So as of right now, there are different levels of scrutiny. So it's no reason at all, articulable reason, and articulable suspicion of a crime. Those are technically the three reasons that would lead to a probable cause in order for a case to be made in front of a magistrate judge, a district judge, so that a warrant could be signed. So we went from, if it's a kind of a funnel, 0 being what we currently are at, to total probable cause and investigation and an indictment being given. We are one step away from no reason at all. And I appreciate that. I don't know. And again, this is the politics is the art of the possible. Would I have had success ultimately getting that bill to the governor's desk? I don't know this year, but I do know that I had a willing participant on the other side of the table who's going to hold his game wardens to a higher standard and asking me and the other legislators who worked on this bill the opportunity to give him a chance to see a substantive change in the way that they conduct their business and investigation. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes of that change in standard operating procedure.
Yeah. Was there opposition or did the Game and Fish Foundation lobby against this? Was there opposition to it or did you just not have the capacity and the time?
There was opposition to it. There was some opposition to it. And in terms of the individual groups, I won't go into all of them. There were some national organizations, some conservation organizations, but at the end of the day, I'm an avid outdoorsman. I'm an avid hunter, and by virtue of that, and the taxes and fees that I pay, I'm a conservationist as well. I don't think we need to hand over all elements of privacy and personal property rights in order to protect the game and land that
I
we
get,
care so much about. So
yeah.
there was opposition, not to the same level as some of the other bills I filed, but there was some organized opposition.
I know you're racking up you're racking up the opposition. I guess one would have to argue, wonder why anyone would be opposed to the protections already offered in our Bill of Rights. But that's who am I to say who that might be?